Hello, I'm Assemblymember Mike Eng. What you're about to see is a short summary of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the impact it had on thousands of families, including mine. The Exclusion Act was a climax to more than 30 years of progressive discrimination towards Chinese immigrants in the United States and opened the gateways to additional laws enacted to perpetuate discrimination and unequal treatment of other minority groups. The Exclusion Act banned Chinese from immigrating to this country and kept them from becoming naturalized citizens. The Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed on December 17, 1943, and to commemorate it, I authored Assembly Concurrent Resolution 76, making December 17th the date not of exclusion, but the day of inclusion. I hope that after watching this video, you will be compelled to take action and organize your own celebrations of the day of inclusion.
History, regrettably in some cases, has a way of repeating itself. While thousands have protested discriminatory and sometimes racist attitudes or policies towards immigrants, Assemblymember Mike Eng is focused on avoiding the mistakes of the past. Assemblymember Eng, who is of Chinese descent, remembers how for 61 years the Chinese Exclusion Act banned Chinese from immigrating and becoming naturalized citizens of the United States.
The United States in the 1800s, specifically in 1882, passed a bill, passed legislation which for the first time in the history of the United States singled out one ethnic group and said they cannot immigrate to the United States. This caused extreme hardship to Chinese Americans that were already in the United States. They couldn't go home because they couldn't come back, and prevented families from being united for the first time in the history of this great nation.
Assemblymember Eng's own family was touched by the hatred of the times.
My grandfather, who came here during the 1800s, brought over by missionaries to work actually on the railroads, ended up working as a houseboy, but he couldn't go back and visit his family in China because of the Exclusion Act, and that created a society where you had a lot of single men who had no families here with them. They led very lonely lives, very, very high suicide and depression rate, and so that has been transmitted through various generations, so that I heard about it for the first time only a few years ago.
It wasn't until December 17, 1943, that the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed. To make sure that history is not erased from our memories, Assemblymember Eng introduced a legislative resolution to remember December 17th as the Day of Inclusion.
This bill will commemorate the end of that Exclusion Act, which happened in 1943, called the Magnuson Act. But instead of dwelling on the past, it will say that instead of excluding people, let's talk about a day of inclusion. Let's celebrate our diversity. Let's talk about California as the Golden State, the Rainbow State, because it represents the rich diversity of many, many cultures coming together to make this an incredible place to live.
It's worth noting that the Chinese Exclusion Act was justified at the time with the claim that jobs were scarce and that the Chinese were stealing the only jobs available because of their willingness to work for lower wages. These are the same claims that some make now as they discriminate against other groups of immigrants.
Unfortunately, our immigration laws have reflected sometimes the hysteria and the scapegoating that goes down in a depressed economy where we seek to blame others for some of the economic evils that we have here today. I hope that this resolution will be a strong message to not just California but to Washington, D.C., that we must have immigration laws that really affect our national interests, which is to have people come for family unity, to bring in those that can contribute economically to this great nation, and that we need not be mired in the racial hysteria of the past.
This report was produced by the Speaker's Office of Member Services.
Discrimination based solely on your ethnic background or the color of your skin is something that we must work together to make sure does not happen in our country. You can be part of the solution. Organize events in your community to celebrate diversity, to commemorate December 17th. Not only as the day when the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed in 1943, but also as a day of inclusion, a day when we can honor and value the importance of diversity in our neighborhoods, in our state, and in our country. Since the passage of ACR 76, I joined a number of civil rights organizations and celebrated the repeal of the Exclusion Act and the Day of Inclusion by hosting an event in my district. It is now my hope that every December 17th, individuals and organizations throughout the state can set up their own events to celebrate our diversity and our inclusiveness. If you have any questions or need any assistance, please visit my website